welcome to the Bamboo Podcast. I get to interview someone who I think is very special today. Jules De Laage is not only part of our larger Bamboo family, but he is also the director and the lead architect for Green School Tulum, which is going to be using a lot of bamboo. And we're here today with him because we want to learn a little bit about what it's like to bring a lot of really cool, incredible designs into reality in a place like Tulum. And what it was like to come from a place like Bali and then transition to a new environment where they do actually have a bamboo industry already, but to really, I think what you're doing with Green School Tulum is really bringing it to another level. And it's really exciting to see it come together with the little bit I've seen. So welcome, Jules, and thank you for joining us today. And last time we talked, you had not gone to Tulum yet. You're still in Bali, and now you're on a whole new adventure by the sounds of things. So tell me a little bit, what is it like to build with bamboo in Mexico?
Hi, Oren. Really happy to be back here. You're right. Last time we spoke, I was about to leave to Mexico. That was 2 years ago. So I've been there almost 2 years now. And it's a very different environment than Bali, of course, on so many levels. I've come to realize very quickly once I left Bali that there is no point comparing Bali to any other place in the world because there is no place like Bali. Tulum has a lot of opportunities in itself. It's a very dynamic and creative environment. The bamboo industry there is, it's young. There's a few people who have been playing around with the material. There's a certain style that has emerged those last few years. But what we're doing now is most likely gonna, be the biggest bamboo project in the country to date. We also have very ambitious goals in terms of the structural systems that we want to develop. We are facing a very different environmental context than in Indonesia. So here, the big factor you design for are earthquakes, whereas in Tulum we have to think about 280 kilometers an hour wind speeds and design hurricane-proof structures, basically. So it's really a new style and a new just a new way of building that we're looking at. Material stays the same. It was really important to us to stay true to this original identity of the Green School Bali campus, which is so well known for all its bamboo structures. We wanted to honor that. We wanted to also really take advantage of the resources that Mexico has in terms of bamboo, because there is quite a bit of bamboo growing there. Not in Yucatan or in Quintana Roo, where we're building the project, but in other states like Chiapas, like Veracruz, and see how we could make something that we could develop an architectural style that made sense for that context, right? The craftsmanship is also very different. So you need to adapt to the local craftsmanship skill sets when you start a project in a new environment. But I think what's most important is that there is a real enthusiasm and excitement around bioconstruction and around bamboo construction in Mexico. And with that, it just takes a little bit of planification, quite a bit of energy. But I have no doubt that we are we're gonna build something that has the potential of inspiring many other people in the country and in the continent to go down this road of building with bamboo and natural materials.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I know that the original design was, kind of concepted by the Ibuku team, and it has its roots, I think, in Bali and the heart of school in Bali. And really, I think what I've seen is that it really it wanted to honor its roots, but also take it to the next level. So I'm really curious, from your perspective, are there like any opportunities or things that are possible in Mexico that wouldn't have been accomplished in Bali, or couldn't happen in Bali in the same way? Like, what do you think developing Green School Tulum, what do you think that will bring to the overall bamboo movement that maybe is different or special and not something that has happened in other places?
Yeah, I think there are many opportunities, and the first one being the constraint that we have in terms of in terms of the wind load considerations, right? Once you are faced with a challenge, if if there's an easy way of fixing a challenge, we're always going to take the easy way, right? But when you're forced to really think outside the box and get out of your comfort zone and explore other solutions than the one that you're familiar with, arises creative opportunity. So right now, all the structural systems that we're working on with the engineers involved in the project are radically different than what we did together here in Bali. Bamboo is a lightweight material, and it has very strong modulus of elasticity, right? It's elastic. So when it comes an earthquake, it sways and it denses, and then it takes back its shape. What you want when you have a hurricane is weight. You want your structures to be compact, and you want them to be anchored to the ground, which is basically the opposite of what we're doing here.
You want them to be heavy.
You want them to be heavy, exactly. However, there are ways when you start to really dive into it and study the questions of making very rigid structures and even thinking of secondary tie-back systems to make sure that your structures will resist those hurricanes. Not if they come, but when they come, because we know there will be.
How often do you get a hurricane?
So I'll be perfectly frank, I have not witnessed a hurricane myself yet, which is, I need to see one to understand really fully what it represents. That's what everybody says, until you've lived an earthquake, you don't really understand what it does and the importance of designing your structures so that they resist that. But the last one was I think 3.5 years ago, was fairly strong. I think 250 kilometers an hour. A lot of the bamboo structures that were already built around, including and facing the sea by architects like Jaime Peña, they're still standing. Very little damage were observed. So there's a lot of precedents that we can learn from. The other thing is we don't, it's like when we talk about heat in the tropics, it's very difficult to look at the past data and just to take that for granted, because our climate is evolving so fast, so the recurrence of the hurricane will only increase.
Especially with climate change.
Exactly. And the temperature will keep on increasing. So, it's like the conversation around sustainability. We cannot just be thinking about sustaining the status quo, and we need to be thinking about regeneration already. How can we, regenerate the places? So it's kind of the same here in the sense that we cannot be just looking at designing structures that sustain the conditions that have been observed to date, but that already anticipate how the climate's gonna evolve, right? But yeah, we're not designing all of the structures to a resistance of 250 kilograms per square meter, which corresponds to 280 kilometers an hour wind speed. We have gradients of resistance because it would just be too expensive and too bulky to be building all of the structures to resist that much. So half of our structures, yes, are W3 wind criteria 3 as we call them, so to resist those kind of hurricanes. About 25% are designed to resist 230 kilometers an hour wind speed, and 25% about 190, which are the smaller structures, right?
And so I guess, does that mean you'll have to repair some of the smaller ones, or you're just like, what's the logic behind? I mean, it's a great topic to talk about because, we get a lot of questions like, how do we make sure that it resists?
So we can also foresee and kind of plan ahead which part are going to fail in case of failure, right? So one of the big strategies that we're implementing for some of the structures are to have pressure release roof which basically that will allow for the roof to blow away at a certain, level of pressure, negative pressure in the sense, uplift, to preserve the structure,
yeah.
right? And the roof can actually be rebuilt. We also, as I said, we'll have some structures that'll have some tie downs, so secondary tie back systems, which allow us to build lighter structures, which that get reinforced when you see the hurricane coming, because that's one of the big difference between earthquakes and hurricanes. You can actually predict. You can actually foresee a hurricane.
So you'll clamp them down or strap them down.
Exactly, something like that.
Before
Absolutely.
the
Yeah, you have like 4 or 5 days notice before. That's the good thing, at least with hurricanes. In Mexico, a lot of the schools are actually considered to be or designed to be the place of refuge. When a hurricane comes, so a lot of people in the community actually take refuge there. In our case, it's going to be the opposite, right?
or you just make a giant, underground bunker to
yeah. You'd think that'd be a good idea. The thing is, Tulum is only rock, right? Which is another great difference. I mean, here you have so much fertile soil, right? At Tulum, you have basically 7 centimeters of soil, if even that. And then you're directly on pure limestone, right? So actually, you want to stay away from excavation as much as possible. Yeah.
But from an opportunities point of view, like what systems or techniques are you needing to develop? You got the uplift roof, which is really creative. It sounds like it's really different from earthquakes in the sense that bamboo inherently or naturally is really good for an earthquake. But for hurricanes, it's a little bit like concrete and earthquakes, where it's like concrete and earthquakes don't actually do well together. And it sounds like what you're saying is that like bamboo and hurricanes are really challenging together.
It's a challenge, but as you say, as we just discussed, it's an opportunity. So yes, we're starting to explore. We have more than started to explore. We have design structures already that incorporate structural systems which allow the bamboo to behave better under this kind of pressure. So, namely grid shell. So active surfaces and introducing rigidity through geometry is actually a way for us to preserve the lightweight nature of the structures that we design, without having to reinforce them too much. They end up looking like bamboo bunkers, basically. And we are also blessed with, very adapted bamboo species there from Mexico, especially from San Luis Potosi, from La Huasteca Potosina, which is an amazing ecosystem in Mexico, where we have a bamboo. It's called Guadua velutina. It's almost solid. You can compare it to, so it's a guadua, but it's as solid as Bambusa blumenia, which we refer to as bambu duri here in Indonesia.
Yeah.
And it's amazing for heat bending, right? So it allows us to do very rigid grid chills without needing to reduce or to process the bamboos itself, right? So
you don't have to
rub
bamboo.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we're doing that. We're actually the heart of school, which was designed by Ibuku, and which are now resolving on a technical level with the engineers from the Tulum side. It's a combination between a 14 meters high reciprocal tower with a ramp, actually held compressively by columns, ramping up to a observation deck. On one side, so that's a compressive structural system attached to a bamboo grid shell, right, which is an enormous dome. I think it's going to be the biggest bamboo grid shell of its kind in Mexico, if not in the Americas. That's completely made with otate, with this guadua velutina, commonly referred to as otate in Mexico. And that part is resolved already. That we figured out from an engineering standpoint. The part we're struggling with is the compressive, way more conventional parts of the building, so to speak, which is
for that bamboo species. Because
for that environmental consideration, for the uplift forces of the hurricane, right?
Okay, that makes sense.
So all this to say that by shifting our mentality in regards to what's easy and what's difficult to resolve, where people would usually see compressive structure, post and beam structures to be an easier solution and grid shells to be more complex, it turns out that in our case, grid shells behave better and are easier to make sense of from an engineering standpoint, than the compressive post and beam structures, right?
That's really interesting, but I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and I think that's something that we love to cover in Bamboo U, is just talking about how actually bamboo creates opportunities from its constraints, like we've been talking about, but it creates opportunities when we get into things like hyperbolic structures or towers and grid shells because of its round kind of curvilinear nature. So Guadua
Velutina.
Guadua velutina is not a species I've heard about before, and I feel like it's it's not on the list of well-known bamboo species. So it's really interesting that you're basically, it sounds like you're pioneering work with that species.
Yeah.
At least in the international bamboo world. But is that a commonly used bamboo in that part of Mexico, in Tulum?
So our dear friend Jaime Peña has been using it a little bit for some time, and I know that some people have been also working with it. We are blessed to have Jörg Stam, whom I think people who follow Bamboo U might already be familiar with. He's and for the others who are just getting into this Bamboo U world, he's a German master carpenter at the origin of a lot of the bamboo structural systems that are being used worldwide. Has done workshops in every single country where bamboo grows, or close to that. Very implicated and very much present with the Bamboo U family, and built some of the early Green School Bali structures. So he's the one that got very excited about the Velutina when we first started talking with him about Green School Tulum, because he saw this opportunity for us to preserve our language or the Bali language of curves, curved bamboo structures, right, which give all their playfulness to the Green School Bali structures, without needing to reduce the structural integrity of the poles, like by making splits or using the rub technique. And he really saw that opportunity, and as we always do with Jorg, he sees something, he throws us the bone as architects, and then we try to make something beautiful out of this structural opportunity that he sees. But I do think some people have been working with it before. That's the other thing is, whenever you think you know a lot about bamboo, like you've mastered the properties of the species that you're used to working with in your environment, and then you go into another environment, and all of a sudden, poof, you have a completely different palette of color to play with, right? As if you gave a painter who's been painting with the same colors all his life, and now you need to shift the palette completely.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about designing with the bamboo. I mean, really, okay, the bamboo isn't designing, but its character is informing our designs, right? So, and I think it's really exciting to hear that you have found a different bamboo, and I feel like it links to our kind of desire, I think, as people working with bamboo, to take this relatively marginalized material and lift it up to a new place and bring a new resource to people in a new way that defies expectations. So that's really exciting.
We're working with a wonderful team of engineers, Atelier One, whom you know well, Neil Thomas and Luis Fernandez, who are really, part of the few engineers who are willing to take the risk of pushing the envelope of what's possible to do with bamboo, especially in such a critical context because of the hurricane, as we spoke. And they are collaborating, and we are collaborating now with a man called David Trujillo, whom you've met, Colombian engineer. He lives in the UK. Who wrote the ISO for bamboo in Colombia? Who's one of the top, he's, if not
one of the top bamboo engineers who is doing it academically.
Exactly, yeah. And so he has been assisting us and supporting us in developing a very wide array of testing for mechanical properties of all the bamboo that we're using there. Because the thing is, when you take bamboo, or when you take any material to that level of to such a critical level in terms of how far you're pushing the envelope of what's possible to do with the material, you really need to get your data straight, right? You really need to know what you're designing for, and not just assume and overspec slightly, hoping that it'll hold. And this worked fantastically here in Bali in the early days, but I think that the more we push, and we can see this happen with the ARC, the new Green School gym here in Bali,
Yeah.
which was such a different structural system as all of the previous structures that were made, that the amount of testing required was significant, you know, also calculated by Atelier One. Um, I would say this has been one of the most intense aspects of the project to date, was to collect all of this data, because it's one thing to say I'm going to make a large-scale, state-of-the-art project in a place where there's so few people doing it, but there is a lot of due diligence from an academic standpoint that needs to happen before you can actually get there.
Yeah, and so we've talked a little bit about the technical challenges, right, and the environmental challenges of basically bringing bamboo to the next level in a place like in a place like Mexico, where it does have some parallels actually to other contexts, including Bali, where you kind of already have a little bit of an industry. A few people have built some buildings. Some of them, are relatively notable, but now you're really bringing it to another scale where you have to do like a whole lot of buildings. What is it like on like the social end of things? Because okay, you can engineer the building and you can get the bamboo, but like, what does the local, community think about what's happening, and how do Mexicans view bamboo? Because here in Bali, we talk a lot about, and it's very similar to all over Asia. It's very prevalent. It's like a ubiquitous part of their cultural heritage. They've been using it for permanent, for non-permanent or temporary bamboo structures. Forever, for rituals, for all these things, and then they're also using it for for all kinds of things to meet their daily needs. However, when we started building kind of modern or contemporary buildings, it was like a new thing, and brought bamboo into a different light, right? And so I'm curious what it's like traditionally in Mexico, because I know you have a very different culture, which means you have different craftsmen, and you have a different, probably a different social response as well, to the material.
So I think that generally speaking, bamboo occupies a much smaller space in Mexican culture than it does in Indonesia, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing because there's much less preconception about the material
to get through, yeah.
Exactly, to get through. Right. Here in Indonesia, it's very clear that 90% of Indonesians consider bamboo as the poor man's timber, and they wouldn't want to live in a bamboo house. In Mexico, I think 90% of Mexicans didn't even think in any way about making a bamboo house in the first place. So we're kind of presenting them something new.
But it's growing there. Like, it sounds like there's quite a bit of it. Are you able to get all the bamboo there?
We are getting most of our bamboo from there right now. So as I said, mostly from Veracruz for the moment, and in Chiapas. And in Veracruz, there are some villages that do have somewhat of a bamboo culture. Like Bali 15, 20 years ago, mostly on a furniture scale. There's a pueblo called Monte Blanco. We're bringing a lot of our workers there. I think the first people who really started building with bamboo in Mexico brought the culture from Colombia. So there is, the origin of bamboo as a construction material in the Americas really comes from Colombia. The Colombian guadua is a very, it's a magnificent bamboo. It grows it's just beautiful, right? It's from the Amazonian. It's very, very tall, very strong. I think it's even stronger than the strongest asper that we can find here, just because it's semi-monopodial bamboo, so it grows much straighter. It doesn't grow in clumps, basically. So it's very straight. The internodes are very close.
Easier to harvest.
Very easy to harvest. Very clean bamboo. Straight, doesn't taper. I mean, it's been used in construction for quite a long time. It was originally treated with copper sulfate, which it's now been substituted with borax and a lot of the most part of the industry in Colombia. But all this to say that, like, with architects like Simón Vélez, who really have been pioneering the bamboo architecture movement since decades, the culture there is very present. So a lot of the Mexican architecture, bamboo guys, let's say, come from Colombia at some point, and there is a bridge between Mexico and Colombia, right? On that. So on the long run, we will be working with a lot of Colombians. Actually, the first contractors that are starting to build the Green School now, the first structures, are Colombian, and they have some Colombian craftsmen with them, and training Mexican carpenters as well. I think there's a big myth around the fact that it's very difficult to work with bamboo, right? It's not true. At the end of the day, bamboo is not a more difficult material than wood. And if you get carpenters to be excited about learning how to work with bamboo, they will learn, and they just need to, they need to fall in love with it, right? So there's a mission here, right? You need to inspire people to be part of this project. And this has been a big part of my job those last 2 years, is to get everybody involved. We have 9 teams of consultants. We have 20 people in-house full-time. We will be around 250 workers working on site when we get to our peak. All of these people need to, if we want this project to be a success, because of its the unicity of its nature, everybody needs to feel privileged to be part of this project, because it is new, because it's opening the windows to a whole other realm of what's possible to do with this material in this part of the world. And we'll get there. And who knows, at some point, maybe we even bring some Balinese craftsmen there to see what happens when the two cultures meet, and what the Balinese can learn about the way that things are done in Mexico, and what our Mexican and Colombian craftsmen can learn about the Balinese way of doing things. And then a new style arises. Who knows?
Yeah, there's so many awesome opportunities. It's interesting you say that it's a myth that it's hard to work with bamboo, because it might be more accurate to say that it's hard to find people that want to work with their hands in general, right? And so I think in a lot of the world, one of the limitations of bamboo is not actually the bamboo, but it's the people.
Absolutely.
And what their skills are. And so, I mean, it's really great to hear that you are finding people in Mexico who have a parallel, or like an analogous, skill set, and then inspiring them to actually take bamboo seriously and do bamboo instead of wood or whatever else they're working on. Because it's also, for me, really interesting to think about the fact that a lot of the time the barrier is in the brain, right, or in the
Absolutely.
head. It's not in the practicality of doing it, and that really goes for and we get a lot of people saying, like, the hardest part is convincing other people, and that's half the game, is getting all those people together, because it really takes a village to build any building, but it takes a special kind of village to grow bamboo buildings. So, I'm just interested also in, being an architect and being somebody who, I had the privilege of watching a little bit of your journey, from, being kind of bright-eyed and really inspired by bamboo, to being someone who's like very deep into, not just pushing the envelope, but bringing bamboo to a whole new place. And what do you feel like this process, and then also you're building something that's really special, right? Like building a school. Small humans will be inspired, we hope, for generations to come, in this space, right? So you really have a task and a need to, create a team that's going to do that justice. And how do you feel like that's transformed or inspired you, as an architect, and as somebody who made the commitment, from a relatively young age, or as a young adult, to figure out how to make space, right?
I mean, there's a tremendous sense of responsibility that comes with this project, because of all the things you said. So first of all, I do think that actions speak way louder than words. So at the end of the day, we can do all we can to inspire people by telling them we're doing something very special. But if we can really show Mexico, and we can show this part of the world how special a bamboo building, or a bamboo campus, or a bamboo school can be, and how that can affect the people who are actually going to be using those spaces, I think that's the best way of inspiring other people to do it, right? So we got to pull it off, and we must inspire others to follow this road. So that's the first thing. So obviously it makes the challenge even more, it puts even more pressure on the challenge, but that's what makes it so beautiful, right? If I can induce a fraction of the wow effect that I've personally felt the minute I stepped into Green School here in Bali to any other aspiring young architect uh, out there. Once this school opens, then I will feel very proud of the work that we've done. Um, I just became a father 5.5 months ago.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much. And so now we have our little baby Elia at home and going to work every day, working on the design of a school. It's going to welcome children where they will learn about the world and take their first steps into life at different ages. It that also induces a huge sense of responsibility. And I have to say, it's incredibly lucky, not lucky, but yeah, I feel very blessed to be able to work on such a meaningful project because of all these aspects that we just discussed, right? I feel like I was given this responsibility at a very young age, eh, and there's no other option than doing it well. And as we just discussed, I only feel like I can do this well if all of the people that I work with are as inspired as I am. And this is where life works in mysterious ways and everything kind of falls into place at the same time. But a lot of the people quite a few people that I'm working with today are actually people that took Bamboo U at a certain point, that received the spark that I've received, that so many other people have received, and that realized that there was no other, once they opened that door, that Pandora box, there was no other option than following that road. So um, we're actually we're two directing this project right now, myself and a guy called Francisco Vidal. I think you remember him from.
He took Bamboo too.
He took Bamboo U in 2018.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
The edition just after Rodolfo and Rolando, so the developers of Green School Tulum, the owners of that project, my boss. After they took the course, so it was at the beginning of the conversation around Green School Tulum, and Paco joined the course, and he did not let go of me for 10 days, asking how he could get involved in Green School Tulum, even before the contract was signed or whatever. And this determination, actually led him to arrive to Tulum, start working with Rodolfo years before I even got there. And so when I arrived to take on the direction of the project, it just made so much sense that we were going to do this together, right? And it started here. We built. He was part of the team that built Dapur Naga,
I remember,
the Bamboo U campus kitchen, the tower. And we have another girl who joined our team. Her name is Veronica Velasquez. She's incredible, working with us as a project manager, coordinating all the consultants. Also did a Bamboo U course after I left Bali, right? And Cecile, the current program manager, recommended her. So all this to say that, all those passionate people and all the ones that I didn't mention, obviously, that are part of our design and construction team and project management team, they're all... I think that a lot of them don't have a choice but to follow this road and know that it's the obvious project for all of us to be dedicating our souls towards, and that's the recipe we're trying for success. We'll tell you if it works out, but yeah.
It's clear that the inspiration and the buy-in from a real community of people is really important, right? And we know that with Bamboo U, and where half the battle is inspiring people. Is there anything that you feel like you're still missing? Are there any specific ingredients for success that you're like, okay, if we can't get this done, we're really going to have a hard time accomplishing, our goal of completing this project?
I don't know if it's missing as much as I can see the shadow of timelines over our heads as one of the biggest challenges of this project. We haven't officially started construction yet, so the strategy is laid out. We know the contractors we want to work with, or at least a good part of them. We have a very strong construction team. Jorg is going to be there a lot of the time. However, things really start to go sideways, so to speak, in terms of timelines once you get into the construction part. So I don't know how that's going to go yet. There's no way. I haven't built a bamboo structure in Mexico so far. I've been there 2 years. but I haven't built anything yet there. Especially considering the fact that we have hurricane season, and it's possible that we will have hurricanes during the construction.
That's a good point. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't think of that.
So
It's a seasonal then, right?
it's seasonal, but we don't necessarily have hurricanes every season. But there's the hurricane season where the probabilities of having a hurricane are much higher. So that's definitely one of the big challenges. There will be so many unforeseen challenges that will arise once the construction starts.
And when are you planning on starting construction?
Next month.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we are about to get started. Actually, there's a couple of structures already built. We do have a workshop on site with a lot of R&D happening. The site is already opened, right? So we're ready to actually get started full on. We have a lot of bamboo already on site. We received a lot of orders, and quite a few structures are, the blueprints are already there. They're done. So we're ready to start. We're gonna need to keep on growing the team. That's for sure. There will be opportunities for people to join, both on the construction side as on the the management and on the design side. We really, I hope, and I know, I don't have much doubt on it, but we really hope that most of the people who get involved actually commit for the whole duration of the project, because there's such a learning curve, when you get started, that the continuity is really important to us. But yeah, many challenges to come. Not sure what all of them are going to be yet.
So if people want to get involved in Green School Tulum and your project, what's the best way of going about doing that?
I mean, there's two ways. Either you send an email and you hope that what happened with you and me happens, and you welcome me with open arms, and there's a magical spot that is available at this point, or you arrive and you knock on the door and you see what's up. We've had both cases. We've had both scenarios happen.
Okay, I think that's a great place to end.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for joining us, Jules. It's been a pleasure, and we'll put your information and more about the Green School Tulum project in the show notes.
Thank you, Oren.
Thanks for joining, everybody.